to describe someone to you. This person has a university degree, maybe 2. They have served 3 years of lectures, written dozens of essays, has examination, has certificates, and by every formal measure, they're educated. And yes, they share misinformation online without checking it. They shut down arguments they don't like instead of engaging it. They surround themselves with people who think exactly like they do. They mistake confidence for competence, credential for wisdom, and volume for logic. It sounds familiar, right? Perhaps you have met this person. Perhaps you are this person in certain minutes on certain topics. Don't worry, so is everyone, so, including the people who taught us. My name is Gabriella Alijah Mohammed, and today our group is going to do something that educated people notoriously struggle with. The question is simple, but the answer is not. If critical thinking is so important, why do we find educated people thinking uncritically?
Critical thinking is the disciplined ability to analyze information objectively, identify errors in reasons, consider different viewpoints, and make decisions based on evidence. It requires humility, courage, and honesty. It is gaining knowledge and fact. Critical thinker is evaluating and questioning that knowledge. Being intelligent or highly educated does not automatically make someone a critical thinker. Critical thinking comes from consistent question, analysis, and evaluating information before accepting it.
Assignment is to frame this around development. And that work is doing serious work. Good development depends on good reason. The people who lead, teach, decide, mostly educated people are the ones society trusts, they think well. But good education doesn't guarantee good thinking. The 2008 financial crisis and the worst ideology of the 20th century were caused by educated people who reason poorly through confirmational bias, groupthink, and unexamined assumption. Sein argues good development means expanding of reasoning capacity. When an educated person feels at the cost, it is not just personal, it falls on everyone.
No school brochure will tell you this. When students get to the university, no matter how smart they are, their brains are trained to avoid critical thinking. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains it with a two-brain system. System 1, which is fast, automatic and emotional. It takes shortcuts and is sometimes useful, but full of biases. System 2, which is slow, careful, and logical. It actually thinks things through. The problem is university doesn't turn off system 1. It just replaces it with bigger, fancier ideas. So educated people can still think badly or with better words. Quick test. The bat and the ball cost $1.50. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball? Most people shout 10 cents. That's system 1 talking. The real answer is 5 cents. System 1 jumps to easy answers. System 2 doesn't. That's why even educated people make dumb mistakes on politics, science, and ethics. The bottom line is, school gives you more facts to be biased about. It doesn't automatically make you less biased.
Smart people make the same dumb mistake in thinking over and over again. Here are the big ones. Appeal to authority. Believing something just because an expert said it without checking the facts yourself. 2. Confirmation bias. Only looking for evidence that supports what you already think and calling it research. 3. Strong man. Twisting someone's argument to make it easier to attack.
Develop critical thinkers, yet they often access students through memorization and content recall rather than reasoning. This contradicts between the purpose of education and, and its methods. Critical thinking is a skill that must be practiced thoroughly through learning, debate, and revising ideas, not merely study. Scholars like Matthew Lipman emphasize that education should be cultivated by reasoning and independent judgment from an early age. The overall argument is that many educational systems reward correct answers more than genuine critical thinking.
Perhaps the most uncomfortable truth for many educated people, the greatest barrier to critical thinking is not ignorance, it is identity. When intelligence becomes central to who you are, being wrong feels like an existential threat. You don't update your position, you defend it. Carroll's mindset research shows that people who see intelligence as fake protect their ego rather than pursue truth. Jonathan goes further. Human reasoning is largely post hoc rationalization. We feel first, then recruit logic to justify what we have already concluded. And educated people do this more convincingly. Dance research confirmed it. Higher education made people better at justifying pre-existing truth, not at finding truth. Education without humility doesn't make you a better thinker. It makes you more convincing one. That is a very different thing.
Discussing the challenges facing critical thinking. What can we do to improve the situation? Number one, we must teach logic as a practice, not just as a subject. Whether someone is a student, doctor, lawyer, engineer, manager, or politician, they should regularly engage in reasoning, argument analysis, and evidence-based decision making. Second, people should be exposed to the strongest opposing arguments. This reflects the principle of clarity, which encourages us to understand and fairly evaluate viewpoints that differs from our own before criticizing them. Third, being open to correction should become a professional value. Scholars, experts, and professionals should openly acknowledge the limits of their knowledge. This builds trust and promotes lifelong learning. As Matthew Lippmann argued, critical thinking should begin early in primary school and continue throughout lifetime. Developing good reasoning habits from a younger age helps to create more thoughtful and reasonable citizens. In conclusion, Episadio argues that education should produce more who are moved by reasoning. This means that educated individuals should base their belief, decision, and action on evidence, logic, and sound reason rather than emotion, assumption, or social pressure.
The question, if critical thinking is so critical to development, why do people, even the educated, find it so difficult to think critically? Notice what the question really asks. Not why the uneducated struggle, not why those without resources fail to reason well, but why even the educated, those who have been through the system, those given the tools still find it difficult. That word even is the weight of the question, and our answer is this. Because we brought biased brains to our education, brains wires for efficiency over accuracy, for identity protection over truth seeking, because the fallacies don't disappear with a degree. The ad hominem, the straw man, the false dichotomy, the appeal to authority, they just get dressed in better language. Because our education system, despite their stated missions, mostly train us to retrieve and reproduce, not to reason and revise. Because our social worlds, our departments, our networks, our filter bubbles reward conformity and quietly punish dissent. And because for many of us, being educated has become too central to who we are, that being wrong feels like a personal collapse rather than a logical opportunity. And so development suffers not because we lack resources, not because we lack degrees, but because the reasoning required to use those degrees wisely is never fully taught and rarely fully practiced. The resolution to this paradox is not criticism, it's clarity. Recognizing these barriers is itself an act of critical thinking, and choosing deliberately, repeatedly to examine our premises, our fallacies, sit with uncertainty, and update our beliefs when the evidence demands it. That is not just an academic exercise, that is intellectual courage, and it is realer.